In the long and winding tale of Genesis, one of the most influential progressive rock bands in history, the name John Silver often appears only as a footnote. But behind that brief mention lies an important chapter in the band's early evolution. As the second drummer of Genesis, Silver helped solidify the band's sound during a crucial transitional moment, just before they would leap into the ambitious, theatrical style that would make them legends. Born in England in 1950, John Silver came into the Genesis fold in the summer of 1968. The band had recently released their debut single, The Silent Sun, and was in the process of recording their first album. Their original drummer, Chris Stewart, also a Charterhouse schoolmate of the band's founding members, had parted ways with the group due to concerns over pursuing music professionally. Enter Silver, another student at Charterhouse, who took over the drum stool just as the band began to coalesce into something more serious. At this stage, Genesis was more of a pastoral, pop rock band than the prog juggernaut they'd later become. Silver joined Peter Gabriel, Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, and Anthony Phillips in the studio to record what would become their debut album, From Genesis to Revelation, released in 1969. The album, produced by Jonathan King, had a Baroque orchestrated sound, layered with strings, horns, and biblical allusions, far removed from the complex time signatures and theatrical epics the band would later be known for. Silver's drumming on the record is clean, restrained, and supportive, a reflection of the album's more melodic, introspective tone. It wasn't the kind of drumming that demanded attention, but it did require a solid sense of timing and an ability to stay in the pocket while navigating King's lush arrangements. Tracks like Shh, In the Wilderness, and Am I Very Wrong display Silver's ability to keep things grounded, allowing the band's lyrical and melodic ambitions to shine. Despite the group's efforts, From Genesis to Revelation was a commercial disappointment. The album suffered from poor promotion, was miscategorized as religious music in record stores, and ultimately sold very few copies. However, it marked a significant milestone. Genesis had made a real studio album, and Silver had been a key part of it. Shortly after the album's release, Silver left the band in mid-1969 to attend college. It was a practical decision, and like many musicians of the time, he likely had no idea Genesis would eventually become a global phenomenon. He was replaced by John Mayhew, and eventually by Phil Collins, whose arrival would radically change the band's sound and fortunes. Though his time in Genesis was short, Silver's contribution remains vital to the band's formative years. He helped shape their early sound and gave them the stability they needed to complete their first record. It's easy to overlook such a brief tenure, but for Genesis, that first album laid the foundation for everything that came next. Silver would remain on good terms with the band and even appeared briefly in the liner notes and acknowledgments of later projects. He popped up in the band's oral history and was mentioned fondly by former bandmates as someone who had played a small but important role during their humble beginnings. Outside of Genesis, John Silver did not pursue a major career in music. Unlike Phil Collins or Peter Gabriel, he didn't go on to sell millions of records or tour the world. Instead, he chose a more private life. But his brush with rock history remains preserved in those early Genesis recordings. Moments that capture the sound of a group still finding its identity, still experimenting, still dreaming. For fans of Genesis who want to trace the band's evolution from its earliest roots, understanding Silver's part in the story is essential. He was there when it all started. He played the beat beneath the band's first full statement. And in a story filled with shifting members, dramatic exits, and musical reinventions, John Silver remains the drummer who gave Genesis one of its very first pulses.